What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of In His Design Podcast. I am your host, Kike, with
Alonso Jimenez
and very special guest,
Alex Salcedo.
Alex. Thank you so much for joining us today in this amazing Sunday. We are celebrating the third Sunday of Lent. Everybody, all the priests, I'm guessing, or I'm hoping all of them are wearing pink today to celebrate Mass. But today, we have a very special episode. As always, we have another guest where we're going to discuss, his journey in the in ministry, also his journey through the seminary, and what he's doing now. And Alonso, how are you doing today, man?
Doing great. Just yesterday I came back from the men's fellowship retreat. We had 3 great speakers and just great company with a bunch of men from all over California. Doing the walk, the walk to holiness, the walk of righteous prayer warriors. That's what we focus on, being righteous prayer warriors. And so I'm excited, met a lot of great people. And most of all, we just got closer to God.
And Alex, man, how you doing this Sunday, man? I know that you guys are always busy with Life Teen. Or you're the director of Life Teen, right, at St. John the Baptist, if I'm not mistaken?
Right, yeah.
How's that going over there, man?
Doing good. There's a lot of great things happening at St. John's, and a lot of teens are just hungry and have that desire to want to know Christ even more. And so we have a great core team. We have great priests who are very supportive, and the Holy Spirit's on fire there. So doing some great stuff there.
That's awesome. And just real quick, for just all you guys listening and also following us, we are on YouTube. We are also on Spotify and also on Instagram. You guys can follow us at Imago Dei Digital Men, as you guys can see in the bottom part of the video. All right, guys, and as you guys know, every single week we focus on Bible verse of the week, where we ask you guys, to use it as something to contemplate throughout the week. Try to input it in your life if you can. And today's come from the Gospel of John, which is chapter 1, verse 16, and it says, "Out of His fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given." And Alex, as we always give this pleasure to our guests, anything that the Lord is saying to you in this Bible passage?
Yeah, so, really, it's God is calling us to be fully alive, right? St. Irenaeus says that the glory of God is man fully alive. And so how do we do this is by doing small acts with great love, right? As Mother Teresa says. And so living our lives, as holy as we can, right? Living our saintly lives, but also doing things in very radical ways, right? I think this is what God is calling each and every one of us to every single day. And I think the gospel affirms that, that no matter what we are doing, right, every single action that we take must be to glorify God. And so I think the Lord is reminding that for this Bible verse, that no matter what's going on, He's still calling us to do great things and to live holy lives for Him.
That's awesome, man. And just real quick, and I also want to apologize to our viewers. So I am still here on studio. I'm just on the control end. We are having technical difficulties on the camera, but I am still here. And well, let's actually get this started then. So, Alex, tell me a little bit about yourself, man. Who are you? What do you, what makes you, or how do I say it? It's like, what makes you wake up with a smile on your face every day?
Jesus. Really, it's so, like you mentioned, my name is Alex. I am 25 years old. I raised by a very devout Catholic family. I'm one of 3 siblings, so I'm 25, and then I have a younger sister. She's 23, and then a younger brother who is 18 years old. And so really my parents have always made it a point to have a good prayer life, right? To grow up in the faith and to know Jesus even more. So the concept, the image of God has always been prominent in our household. And I think just for me, just seeing the love that my parents have shown each other really was a clear indicator of God's love for me. And so seeing that as an image as a reflection of God's love to us, for me, it makes me want to love God even more. And so, that's something that I have always remembered, right? the blessing of my parents and the blessing that I have received to continue on the faith and to continue to follow Christ.
That's awesome, man. And real quick, you say you're the oldest of 3, right?
Yeah.
So you're the oldest of 3. So what has that been like for you? Like, obviously you have to be the example. You have to be the one that has to show your siblings like, hey, this is the way it's done. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, sure. So it's been, I remember growing up, it was always a challenge with my younger sister. I think because we were closer in age, there was a lot of things that she would do that would upset me or that would get me a little frustrated. So I think just having that those sibling battles were definitely there. But I think growing up with as the older sibling, I mean, definitely had its struggles as well, right? Being the example, making sure that I cautious as to what I'm doing, and because I know that my siblings were watching my every move. And to be honest, man, it's I remember my parents, now that I've gotten older, there was more of a leniency on certain things that I did. I know with my sister, parents have been a little bit more strict with her. I don't know if it's because she was the girl in the family, and dad and mom tend to be a little bit more strict with that. And then my younger brother, they just kind of like, well, we made it with 2, so maybe with the third one he'll probably be okay, just kind of doing his own thing. But yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing blessing, right? Like I mentioned, to be able to have siblings, and we've been able, as we've gotten older, we've been able to relate a lot, and we've been able to talk about things that come up in life, and just get feedback from each other, from all my siblings. So it's been awesome, man. It's been awesome.
That's great. Actually, I'm in the same situation.
Yeah.
A little older than you, but I'm the oldest. Okay. I have a sister in the middle.
Uh-huh.
And the baby's my brother.
Sure.
But with me, I was actually, they were the strictest on me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My sister, still the strictness was there because she is the girl.
Sure.
But my brother, like you said, hey, we figured out with 2, they're not screw ups.
Right.
Let him do whatever he wants.
Exactly.
But I know the same struggle where if some of them, at one age, they figure it out if they did something wrong, and they say, Alonso did it first, even though I didn't, I will take the blame.
Right.
Because they'll blame it. They figure that loophole.
You'll sacrifice it.
We'll sacrifice Alonso because he's the oldest and he can take all that. It's funny. It's but it's a great experience.
Right.
It shapes us a little bit different, a little bit tougher.
Right.
Where I see that we're usually less emotional.
Yeah.
We tend to just try to hold it together.
Mm-hmm.
But now, you think as being the oldest, did that influence your path with Christ, or is it just totally just your parents in general? Mm-hmm. Do you see the same thing with your brother and your sister? Mm-hmm. Have they been influenced the same?
Sure.
Because I can tell you the truth. My family, no, my sister, she prays and everything, but my brother's just like,
sure.
Jesus who?
Yeah, exactly. Who? Right.
Ironically, his middle name is Jesus.
Oh.
And he's the one that's, just out there,
Right.
He just got married recently, but, he's learning the ropes of how to be a man. Mm-hmm. But still, he doesn't look at the church the way we do.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, like I mentioned before, my parents introduced us to the faith at a very young age, and really there was no questioning as to who Christ was for us. And so, in the house we would see images of Our Lady of Guadalupe. We would see crucifixes everywhere. I can say though that, even though my parents were very religious, we were not praying the rosary every single day. We were not, going to mass maybe daily. We definitely went to mass every Sunday growing up, but it wasn't like, when we get home at 6 p.m. after dinner, like we're gonna read this passage of the gospel or the passage of the Bible. I mean, it was nothing like that. But we, my parents, again, at a very young age, had us involved in the parish, especially me. I believe when I was maybe 10 years old, that's when I began to altar serve at my home parish. And I think that really planted a seed in me, that through time, right, Christ has been able to water it even more, and it's beginning to sprout in beautiful ways. But for me being involved, it was obviously the more that I did it, the more I began to learn about my faith, making my faith my own. It wasn't my parents' faith, but it was my faith.
Yes.
And so I think with that, it set the example for my other siblings. Like, hey, like Alex is doing this, maybe I should try it out, or maybe I should kind of follow in his steps in some ways. So it was, I would say those were very, like, some ways I think as like siblings are growing up.
So after altar serving, what was the next step in your path?
Yeah, so I altar served for about maybe 8 to 10 years. I can't remember correctly. So I did it for some time. And even in high school, I still altar served. Really, after altar serving, towards my high school years, I became more involved in our young adult group. So that was our life team program. And I remember going to my first ever retreat, right? And I was a sophomore in high school, and it was titled Brick. So that Christ is the brick of our faith, that nothing can destroy that. And I remember kind of going in with already building some walls around my own like ideas of who God was, right? Putting God in a box and limiting God as to what He was going to do for me in that weekend. And so I went to this retreat again with these limitations. And it wasn't until Saturday night that I had a very profound and intimate encounter with Christ during adoration. And it was my sophomore year of high school that I really began to see my faith in a different way, right? And so after that experience of going to that retreat, I became a little bit more involved in the life team program, junior year, senior year. So really after altar serving, that was really the next step in my faith journey, was being involved with the youth group.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I have a lot of beautiful memories of that too. I was not in life team. I was just in a local parish youth group. But it's a beautiful place. We talked a little bit off camera. It shelters you from a lot of evil, a lot of problems, headaches that you could have given your parents.
Yeah.
And consequences to your today.
Right.
So beautiful. And then you mentioned that right after high school, you actually took a big decision.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So after high school, it's probably my senior year of high school, and I began to think more heavily on where God might be calling me to. And I began to discern a little bit more, right? So discernment is the ability to be able to ask for the graces for God to guide you in where He's calling you. And I really felt God calling me to the seminary. And so the seminary, for those of you, for those who don't know what the seminary is, it's essentially a school where young men go to pursue the priesthood. And so at 18 years old, I applied to the seminary, and I don't know how, but I got accepted. And it's been, I found myself that August, I had that summer off. I graduated high school. I went to West Covina High School. I graduated. And then that August, I began my journey of the seminary. So I was 18 years old when I started. I was very young. There was a few of us from my home parish that actually entered in that same year. One friend of mine from my high school, and then one other gentleman that entered in that same year, and then a year after that, 2 more guys entered in. So there was a total of 5 guys in the seminary from my home parish. So it was very comforting to be able to know that, right? I went in knowing some guys already. And so I ended up applying to the college seminary. At the time, it was called the Juan Diego House. And we were up in Gardena. And then I spent 4 years there. I took college classes, right? I got my bachelor's degree in philosophy. It was a beautiful time of seminary formation. And not to say that there wasn't any challenges, right? Like anything that we do, there's also challenges. Really just, I think for me, having this been a big step in my own life of, leaving home, right? Leaving your comforts of your parents and them watching you and that dependency that was there. It was definitely a shock for me, right? To be able to have to move away from home and let alone moving in with like a bunch of guys, right? So for me, it was very overwhelming, very intimidating as well to have to make that kind of decision, like any young man I'm sure would feel. I remember just kind of going through the whole motions. That first night, I'm like, I'm gonna leave the seminary. Like the next day, I'm gonna pack my stuff and I'm gonna go home. And just had all these kind of ideas. I had planned things out of how I was gonna leave, but I told myself that maybe if God was not calling me to this, I need to give him more of a shot to make sure that this is a firm thing, right? And so I waited a month after, and then I really began to get used to the whole system of the seminary, what came with seminary life, especially being as young as I was, right? I had my own challenges as a young man, just trying to find my place, in this new lifestyle, my identity, right? How has my relationship with God changed now that I've officially really allowed myself to go forward in the unknown, right? And I began to see how God was working in my own life at that stage. And so I began to make friends pretty quickly. There's about 40 guys during that time that entered that were with me in the college seminary. There were some great priests who became my formators, and it was just a very formative time for me. And I was challenged spiritually, mentally, emotionally, which were all, aspects of seminary life, right? And so I had a beautiful experience at the college seminary, and being able to go deeper into that.
What can you tell or tell our audience, because so we can pray for the seminarians? What are some of the challenges that a typical seminarian might be facing?
Yeah, so I mean, I can only speak for
your experience,
for my own experience and how I was feeling. Coming in as a young man, I had immediate challenges of my own curiosities of what would life be like if I actually became a priest and I didn't get married, right? The challenges of not having a family, right? The challenges of not being married and having kids. As any man, right? Naturally, I think this is something that we should be struggling with, right? Because that's how God created us to be. And so I would say that for me, that was one of the challenges that I had. Again, kind of going back to what was God's plan for me and was I making the right decision? Learning also to be in a community, right? A lot of guys, it could be a challenge to have to work with other people, to let alone living with other people, right? Seminary life, we had our own rooms and all that, so there was privacy, right? But I mean, you're living with guys who, there's different personalities, right? And so sometimes there's moments of clashing, which is fine, right? But and I think this is moments where you need to ask for the graces from God to be able to give them to you, to give you the patience, to give you the understanding as to how to work with people. Because at the end of the day, right, if God was calling me to become a priest, I need to know how to work with different personalities, right? God created us all different, right? And so we all have our different ways of approaching different situations. And so that was one other challenge. And then I would say, and funny enough, the one challenge too was maintaining a good prayer life, right? Even though we're in the seminary, it doesn't mean that prayer is perfect for us.
Like all of a sudden you turn on the
Exactly.
switch, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there's no magic switch, and there we go. We're in this like this higher prayer life. No, on the contrary, we're still have our own struggles, right? So those don't change
Okay.
after going to seminary life. The seminary prepares you in ways to be able to grow stronger in your faith, right? It's like if you go to the gym, right? You need to work out, and you get bigger and bigger and bigger. Same thing, the same concept with prayer life, right? It's we need to continue to practice, right, and build a good rhythm, build a good cycle, so that we have a strong prayer life. And so that's another challenge, right? Making sure that we make that a priority every single day.
One of the other questions I had for this part of your life, how do you chose this particular community?
Yeah,
Because for our listeners, there's a lot. I don't know the number, but there's quite a few
right.
communities, and every one of them is different.
Sure.
The way they live their spirituality.
Of course, yeah. So for me, I entered a diocesan seminary, right? So a diocesan seminary, for example, if you see your local priest at a parish, most likely they may be diocesan priest. And so for me, in the beginning stages of my own discernment, I didn't really know the differences. I just kind of like, oh, seminary to seminary. There's no distinction. It wasn't until I actually entered the seminary that I began to understand, like, oh, this is a seminary for like diocesan priest. And not saying that, I mean, they told me that before, during my application process, but I began to know that, oh, well, there are religious, or there are guys who are studying to be religious priests for like the Franciscans or the Dominicans, who are entering into the diocesan seminary, but are studying further order. And so one I guess way that I've heard it described was that the diocesan priests are like the general practitioners, right? So they're called in many ways to walk with people, and the religious order priests are more of like the specialists, right? Like they deal more with like a doctor would deal more with like a heart
That's what I was
surgeon,
gonna say.
or like
with like the charisms, right?
with
Like,
the charism, yeah, certain charisms.
I was gonna say like diocesan priest is somebody like a general practice.
Right.
The doctor you usually see when
Exactly.
you have a cough, and the other seminaries, the other communities, they specialize in something.
Exactly. Yeah. Their charisms are focused on other ways. So, for example, like, if you're somebody that enjoys teaching, then maybe like the Jesuits might be a good fit for you, right? Maybe God might be calling you towards that life, right? Again, the Norbertines are solid as well, right? I mean, all these orders are solid. If you have more of an interest to help the poor, right? Maybe the Franciscans. And so, our Lord is so great that He has given us different orders, different ways to serve the kingdom. And so, there's different ways to serve God. And so I think this is why, and it's funny because yesterday I was talking to some confirmation students, and we were talking about the gifts of the Holy Spirit, right? That we're all one body, but Christ as the head. We're all called to serve in different ways. So,
Amen. And then real quick, Alex, as you guys can see, I'm finally on the shot. But real quick, this is something I've been wanting to ask you for a while. I already know the answer, but who is a saint that you've always looked up to? For our audience,
Sure.
In case they have
Yeah, so growing up, I've always loved going to the mountains. I've always loved like hiking and anything that had to do with like greenery and pine trees and the whole like just vibe of it is very attractive to me. And so I got really close to JP2. JP2 for me is somebody that has been a huge role model in my own life. Just the life that he has had as a child, very difficult life, obviously, losing of his parents and of his siblings, and really relying on the love of Mary, right, when he lost his mom. And for me, I mean, I have a deep devotion to Our Lady, and I think JP2 really helped me to better understand, how to love Mary even more. And his motto that I love and I like to reference a lot is, life with Christ is an amazing adventure, right? And so for me, it's something that I've always kept close to heart, knowing that life could take any unexpected turns, right? And we know that life is very delicate as well, and we're not granted, tomorrow. And so really, JP2 has helped me to better understand how to cherish each moment. And really, he goes up to the heights, right? He goes up to the heights, to the highest point, right, up in the mountains, and he searches for God up there, right? We see this taking place in a lot of moments in the Bible, right, in the Old Testament. And so, for me, that's also where I have been able to find God even closer, to be able to listen to his voice. And for me, so JP2 has always been a big influence for me.
That's
faith,
cool.
So, yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen his movies, right? I mean, Carol, the Carol movie, Carol, the Man Who Became Pope.
Yeah.
And as you can, for our watchers, we recommend you guys watching that movie. It's pretty beautiful. It's it's a very beautiful movie. Talking about from his young college days, I'm guessing, right, university days, all the way up to when he gets elected. Obviously, they made a second part, which was his whole papacy, and throughout the whole movie, right, you just get to see his suffering, but he doesn't complain about it, right?
Right.
Especially towards the end of his life, they show him suffering. He's losing breath. He can't breathe as well towards the end of his life, but you don't see him complaining. He has his rosary in his hand. There is one scene though that really gets to me. I don't know, Alex, if you've seen it or if you remember that part, when he's speaking to one of his friends in Poland. I think he was recently named bishop, auxiliary bishop of Krakow, and one of his friends, he goes to one of the strikes, because this is when communist or the Soviet Union overtook Poland. So communism was a very powerful political movement in Poland during the time. So there was a strike. Some people ended up dying, and JP2 tells the guy, it's like, I became a priest to help people, but there's moments where I feel like I'm not helping anybody, right? Like I just hear suffering over and over again. And for me, it just hits me, right? Because it's like, as human beings, we think we can solve all the issues in the world, but at the end of the day, it's not us solving the issues of the world, right? It's God using us to solve these issues, right? JP2, World Youth Day, he, the Holy Spirit inspired him, but it wasn't an event that, JP2, he's the main guy of everything, right? Yeah, he came up with the event, but it was God's will, something that God wanted to attract more youth to the church. So just bringing it back to your devotion to the Blessed Mother, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, I think it's something that should be recommended to all youth, especially to those that are facing, difficult moments in their life, anxiety. I mean, the Blessed Mother, she suffered herself as well, watching the death of her son. And, to this day, she still suffers seeing us going through pain, through anger, everything. But yeah, Alex, I mean, and thank you for sharing that, man. I mean, JP2 is probably one of the greatest saints in the Catholic Church, or one of the greatest modern saints that the church has offered us. And just real quick, was he someone that kind of gave you that inspiration of, obviously God's the one that gives the vocations, right? He's the one that gives the vocation. But was he someone that kind of helped in that process, the discernment process?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been attracted to youth, right? Like just being involved with youth, and obviously my background in being involved with the Life Teen program as a teen. So JP2 obviously being starting World Youth Day and his influence with the youth was very attractive to me. And so I definitely asked him for a lot of intercession, and I've received graces from that for sure. So yeah, he's definitely been a big part of my own discernment.
That's awesome, man. And now, since we are moving now from your vocation, or your time in seminary, we now move on to what you are doing now at St. John the Baptist. As we mentioned in the beginning, you are the director of Life Teen in St. John the Baptist in Baldwin Park, which is an amazing parish full of a lot of people, a lot of cultures. Obviously, Alex, you are a witness to that. Myself as well. What has that been like for you? Anything that you can say, or how do I say, like, also use it as advice for other youth ministers out there?
Sure, yeah. So after leaving the seminary, again, I spent about 5 years in seminary, and just had a lot of questions in my own life as to, where is it that God is calling me to now? There's a lot of curiosities that I had while in seminary. And the biggest one was really, that desire to want to get married and have kids, right? So that desire kind of led me more towards to leave and to discern out of seminary. And so I ended up discerning out and really just kind of found myself in a place, okay, well, like, what's next, And so the current pastor now at my home parish had invited me to think about, taking over the Life Team program. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, there's just too many things going on. I just left like the seminary, I need some time to just, reflect and to spend some time away. And so this was unfortunately during the pandemic. And so there was a lot of challenges even in the midst of all that. Right. And so a year later, my pastor approaches me again. He's like, hey, Alex, I've been praying for you. And, I wanted to make sure, I wanted to go back and invite you again to think about, doing youth ministry. And I said, okay, well, you know what, Father, like, thank you again for asking me again. I'll pray about it. And sure enough, I ended up giving him my yes. And I became the youth minister for the Life Team program. And it's been an amazing experience. Every single day, I just thank God for the gift of this position, right? I think for me, the role of it is a greater call of service, to be with the teens. And the motto of Life Teen is to lead teens closer to Christ. And so at the end of the day, that's my intention, right? I have a solid core team who has responded graciously to the call of service to be with the youth. And I think now, we just continue to build it up, right? Continue to build up what God has given us. And obviously with a lot of support from the parish and knowing that, there's a lot at stake, when it comes to youth ministry. It can be very difficult, right? Especially for those of you who are youth ministers, the challenges that come with youth ministry and the sacrifices that we have to make, right? Being the first ones in the morning to get there. I mean, the last ones to leave at night. And so, I think God continues to bless us in many ways, to give us those graces to be able to continue to do that. I wouldn't say that it's a job that anybody can undertake. But I think, that God knows what he's doing. And if you're a youth minister, I think you're in that position for a reason. And so, I think that overall, just reflecting on where I'm at now. Now this is my third year doing Life Teen at St. John the Baptist, and it's been again an amazing journey. I've got to know more about myself. I've got to know more about my own strengths, my own weaknesses. And have been very open to continuing to form myself even more, and just allowing the whole process just to purify me too in many ways, knowing that some days are going to be harder than others, right? And just trusting in God and trusting that the Holy Spirit has me in a special place, and that He's going to do some great things. So.
That's good, man. That's good. Alonso, go for it.
Any last advice, for people that are in your shoes or they're being called to answer a call like yours?
Sure.
On the Life Team,
Mm-hmm.
any advice for them, just so our viewers can?
Yeah. JP2 says, do not be afraid, and I think that's a call that I stand by. It's very scary to follow God, right? It's very scary to say yes to God, because you just don't know where that's going to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, right, who have already said yes to God, and we can kind of tell, like firsthand that this is like, we're so glad that we said yes to him, right? It's God has led us in many ways, beautiful ways, and I would say, just continue on with your prayer life, right? If we're not in communication with God, then what makes us think that God's is going to be in communication with us? I always tell the core team, we can't give what we don't have, right? So if we're not spending time in prayer with our Lord in the chapel, right? If we're not doing our holy hours, if we're not going to mass as often as we should, if we're not praying consistently, then those are ways that the devil can attack, right?
Yes.
And so we know that spiritual warfare is very real, and that the devil, is very active in that. So continue on with your strong prayer life. Have a good group of friends that you trust, friends that are going to help to guide you in that journey. We know that we cannot live out a life of faith alone either, right? It requires others to journey with us. And so really that's the advice that I would give. Just awesome. Continue to say yes, and God will take care of the rest.
All right. And just to close off, do you have any social media that they can, maybe your life team or a parish one that they can?
Sure. So our life team account is SJBYouth_. So it's SJBYouth_. You see a lot of our different activities coming up and events that we do.
And that will be on their Instagram?
Instagram. Yeah. Okay. Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then quick story. It's actually kind of funny. So I don't know, Alex, if you know the behind. I don't know if you know the story behind that, the SJBYouth_, or who was the one that changed it. So it was actually 2019. It was when the former youth minister was there.
Mm-hmm.
We were gonna create something where it was a big program we're gonna do. So we ended up changing the name from SJB Life Team to SJB Youth.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. So if there's anybody at St. John the Baptist wants to know why is the name that, you can come and tell me stuff. but no, yeah. Thank you, Alex, for joining us. It was great listening to your story, especially listening, how the Lord has continued to use you. Right? Sometimes there's moments where some of us feel like, okay, I went through the seminary, I went to the convent, God doesn't need me anymore. Well, no, that's not true. God's always going to continue to use you for whatever He's calling you to. And right now, as you can tell, Imago Dei was an idea out of the seminary. You leading Life Team in St. John the Baptist, that is something that the Lord was calling you after the seminary, right? So yeah, we just got to keep working hard towards the goal, which is holiness, to reach heaven. And Alex, as always, you're an amazing human being. Thank you for being here with us. Especially, I know I've been tracking you down for the past 2 months. It's like, hey man, come on our podcast. We want to listen to your story.
Long time coming, yeah.
Yeah. But again, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Alonso as well, thank you for co-hosting this show with me. I know that, everybody's time is, we're all scheduled to do something, right? But Alonso, thank you so much for taking time out of the day. And guys, don't forget to please subscribe to your YouTube channel. Hit that like button as well. Share this episode to your friends, to your family, loved ones, even youth ministers or even pastors or priests. If you want us to help you do an event at your parish, let us know. And also follow us on Spotify and on Instagram, Imago Dei Digital Min. As you guys can tell in the bottom part of the video, we have all our descriptions, and also we'll add the link to SJB Youth or for Life Team St. John the Baptist. But again, guys, as always, we thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next week. God bless.